Okay, is the slide visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
English well apart. Okay, so this we have talked about. These examples we have discussed, and then I was discussing about the definition of what is code mixing and what is how are they different. So I have given a small this thing here, small definition here. You can read up more in the book. I have all. By the way, I have mentioned the book that I am following for this particular segment, so you can read up, and I will refer to some sections in that as well while talking about the examples, case studies. So this is what we were talking, code switching. So code switching happens intersententially and code mixing happens intrasententially. And then we moved on to the the more important, mostly the questions that are mostly addressed in this socio-linguistic aspect of bilingualism. First and foremost, what kind of element can be mixed? So is it random? Can we mix anything with anything? Does it happen like that? Or is there a sort of some kind of a restriction, grammatically speaking, some kind of a restriction? Of course, this particular domain is written about by a lot of people, and this is in itself major area of research. But because we are not so much interested in the grammar of bilingualism in this case, so we will not really talk much about it. I'll just show you some examples, and that is it, so that you don't have to mug up as such. And then, so what is there a grammar of code mixing? And more important is, however, why do bilinguals employ mixed speech anyway? Why does it even happen? And then what is the social evaluation? How do we take it? So is this a random phenomenon? Now, this is something, this particular example I have taken from a book, which I don't personally agree with. For example, you see that I told him that Ram bahut bimar hai. This is considered fine. However, I told him ki Ram bahut bimar hai. This particular, the second sentence was considered ungrammatical. This is, of course, a little old, the book from where I have taken this. So that time it was considered ungrammatical. However, these days even I use sentences like this. So the that part is not anymore. I mean, I can hear more of the key sentence than the that sentence. I told him ki Ram bahut bimar hai is also very common these days. That is the constraints that used to be there couple of decades back are no more there. So this was about towards the end of last century. Um, Things were different, and things have changed so much rapidly that that is another reason why I don't want to um, uh, spend much time on the grammaticality of it. They change because that is the nature of code mixing and things like this, because you never know what will be allowed today and what will be allowed tomorrow. So anyway, so there are certain things like this that you cannot add that you cannot add adjective here and there and so on. So that is it. But we are more interested in other non-linguistic functions, socio-psychological and pragmatic motivation. Why do we do that? Grammatically speaking, there are these few factors. Linguistic and pragmatic factors is what we will discuss first. First and foremost is quotation. So when you quote somebody who spoke in another language, it becomes a very common practice to quote the saying as it is. There is an example that I have quoted here. She does not speak English, and then the rest goes in Spanish. So there is it Spanish? I guess so. So then this is how she says she does not speak English. She says they would scold her, and then the whole thing is in the other language. So when you quote somebody, so he said that he was not very well, usko आना नहीं था, and like something like this. That is something very common. So quoting very often goes hand in hand with code mixing, like code switching. Similarly, you have address specification. Now, imagine a conversation setup when you have where you have two, three different. So this is a very good example for that. This is from Braj Kachru, 1990 paper. So you should know that everybody in the conversational setup, we should know that who to whom the question is addressed. So there are three people here. Somebody A is calling out to call Sahib. Hello, how are you, Call Sahib? And then Call Sahib answers back in Maharaj. I'm fine. And then it goes like then immediately they switch to their own the language that they share, which is Kashmiri, and then they go on. I think it is Kashmiri. Oops, I think I have omitted somehow the other part. There was another participant here to whom the address of the A again immediately shifts to Hindi to get chai for both of them. So I somehow while copying it from the paper I missed it. So this is what we mean by address specification. So you start with one English, and then Call Sahib indicates that it is no, they can talk in their own the language that they share, and they keep talking in that. And then in the meantime, the host in this case calls out to the servant and says that says to that person in Hindi to make chai, to make sorry, code mixing again, to make tea for them. So this is what we mean by address specification. Similar things happen in many other situations as well. You can um, imagine or you have seen also. Similarly, there is another kind of code mixing that happens, pragmatically speaking. This is called interjection. So this is where the use of ra and mama and na in Hindi and in Telugu into English metric sentences will be considered. So interjections. These are the short forms of the names again from my book. Do what? System analyst lab. So system analyst, what else? Is that so? Then programmer la. So this is what is an interjection. So that la part is from the other language. This is also very common and grammatically very, what do you call it? Productive. Very, very commonly used. Another is what we call reiteration. So reiteration or paraphrasing marks another function of mixing. The message expressed in one language is either repeated in another language or with some modification. So this is where I was mentioning that Hindi films often have a bilingual title. Um, right now I don't remember that, but there have been some. So there is one word English name and then followed by the Hindi transliteration of the same. So this is what reiteration. You are paraphrasing it. You are putting emphasis on that to clarify what it exactly is. So this is a particular case like that. So Hindi English again. This father calling his small son while walking through a train compartment. This is again very very old by Campers. Father, keep straight and then louder, sidhe jao. Because keeping straight is, so this is again, there is, I think I did talk about it yesterday again. So that the way the socio-psychological value system, so when you are speaking in English, you will probably be, maintaining a different level of composure as opposed to when you speak in Hindi. So keep straight is in normal tone, and then sidhe jao is in a much louder tone. So this is again a case of reiteration. Similarly, we have, as I have been harping on, that there is a non-linguistic function of code mixing as well, and that is sometimes very, very interesting. And we all are kind of used to those things, and we have seen them. So there are some such examples that I am talking about in terms of examples. So this is again example. What is called situational switching. Situational switching is this story is from Norway, a particular small town in northern Norway. It's called Hennesberget or something of that sort. So there are two languages in this particular area that are used. One is called the Ranamal and the Bokmal. I think that is how it is pronounced. So R and B, let's say. Right. So Bokmal, the B language, is the standard language that is identified by the Norwegian government and for all official purposes, official transaction, religion, mass media, and so on. On the other hand, the language R is the local language that people identify with as in, for example, Hindi and English. So if I'm a Hindi speaker, I identify with Hindi, and English is the language for all official transaction, religion, mass media, everything, print media, whatever. Now, the data is from a small town which is near northern Norway. Northern Norway, as you all know, this is near the Arctic Circle. So this place is a very small place and a very few people, small community, and small communities are typically very close-knit communities as well. Now, one interesting factor about this particular place is that most people identify with each other as a part of a family, sort of a team or a family, as it happens in any small place like villages. Everybody is connected to everybody, and we all feel as if we are sort of a one family kind of a thing. So more of fellow feeling, more of the close knit kind of an understanding is there, and it is also and unique in another way in that there is both extreme poverty and extreme wealth do not exist here. So more people are more or less on the same plane in terms of financial well-being as well. Because Norway is of course is a rich country, so many other places have this extreme wealth. In some places, extreme poverty in some cases. So that of course has a role to play in language choice of language. That does not happen in this particular case. However, and people speak both the languages, both the official language and the local language. Now, what happens, there are many cases where you switch between R and B depending on the scenario, depending on the situation. For example, when there are some people from this region who visit other parts of Norway, including the capital and very big cities and so on, and they tend to be more inclined towards B as the prestige language. It's something like many of us, speaking in English when we go back to our small town. So they tend to speak more of the prestige language. Now, this in turn makes the R speakers stick to their identities even more strongly, because what is happening here is R, that is Ranamal, the language, is the signal of social distinctness. So we are a group, in group identity marker, whereas B is an out group identity marker here. So if you want to be identified with the posh, the high status, more sophisticated, more educated kind of stature you want to reflect, that is where you shift to B. Or you want to be more of solidarity to the local people, try to appear as an in-group member and so on, then you shift to R language. So typically what happens in this particular locality is, for all semi-formal and formal settings, everybody shifts to B language, which is the formal language, that is the official language. For example, if a group of people are speaking in Ranamal, that is the local language, and an outsider's approach, immediately everybody will shift to B, because outsiders are that is the marker for outsider language. Immediately they will shift. Similarly, in classroom, it has been found out, a very interesting study, in fact, classroom, it's been found out that when the teacher wants to sound more serious, he wants to be more strict, he wants to tell the students that I don't want any interruptions and so on and so forth, he shifts to B. But the same teacher with the same students, when he wants to be more friendly, he wants to be more, signal a more informal note, he switches to R. So this is very interesting finding from this particular group of researchers. Similarly, B is a marker of education and power in the national scene, right? And as a result of which these signals rank something, rank in terms of prestige, power, money, whatever. Now, because the local community is more or less egalitarian and they want to be seen as such, they do not really, appreciate this particular use of B language by some of their own. So, as a result of which, if they at all use B, that is the Bokamal official language, it has to be only with task dependent, official purposes and so on, not with respect to informal purposes. If somebody uses it for informal purposes, that person is immediately considered as an out-group member, not an in-group member. So similarly, for outsiders, if there is an outsider, as a mark of officiality, expertise, politeness, and so on, they will shift to the B language as opposed to the A language. So this is how it works out. So social meaning in code switching works like this in this particular case. Yeah, you can all see this happening everywhere in India as well. When we want to sometimes be more official, even with your friends, to shift to English and so on. And then there is another important, very subtle case of social negotiation. The same people same conversation partners, but using different languages to change signals of different levels of negotiation. A very interesting example is given by Maya Scotton in the book about this is the scenario is in Nairobi, IBM Nairobi head office, and so there is a visitor who comes to meet the boss there, so the some officer there, and what happens that he speaks a different language. He comes from a particular area in Western Kenya, and the language spoken there is very different. And the official language there is Swahili. And now, how this person uses, I will ask my PA to share that scanned copy of the conversation. I don't know it's there in the soft copy or not. So there is so the person comes in, the visitor who comes, and he knows the person who he has come to meet, and they both are from the same place, and they speak a different language. And then he comes and negotiates that first the guard says, no, the boss is not here, he will not meet anybody now, you can come back later, and something like that. And then he immediately changes to another language, and he says, I have come from that place and I want to meet him. And then so the guard asks if you speak in this particular language, and he says yes, and they immediately shift their language, and the work gets done. He is allowed to wait there and meet the boss. This is something that we do all the time. So when we go to, when we, even if you don't know, if you have gone to a different state as a tourist, and you are trying to bargain in the marketplace, you will typically, more often than not, you will learn some local terms, the local basic words to how to bargain. I see a lot of people who have come from outside to like foreigners to Guwahati also. They do the same thing. We do the same thing when we go out. And if you have watched all those travel shows of all those white people coming to India and how they bargain and all that, this is what you will see. So the moment, the funny, I don't remember right now that person's name, that bald man, white man, I think he's British. He goes around all over India, and he makes those travel videos. Very interesting person, and the way he uses language is very interesting. So there was this particular video I remember watching. He goes to he goes somewhere in Manipur. I think it's Manipur, and he speaks in Hindi to some people. He goes into the shop, and he wants to see what is happening, what they are making. Some teak wood furniture shop, and the wood is smuggled, and he says all these things. He says in English, but once he goes inside the shop, and he says, "मैं देख लूँ कोई बात नहीं." So कोई बात नहीं also he supplies. He does not wait for the other person to tell him कि देख लीजिए कोई बात नहीं. That is his sentence. मैं देख लूँ कोई बात नहीं. So the moment you say this in Hindi to an Indian, where he is, you kind of disarm the person. अच्छा ठीक है, आप देख लीजिए. So this is what we mean by social negotiation. I will sometimes, maybe I'll give the link to that particular video sometime. So this is what we mean by negotiation. This is something all of us do all the time. And this is another case, another very commonly seen such a scenario will be in train. I don't know how many of you travel by train. When we were students, we used to travel by train. So what used to happen when you sit train compartments are very interesting places. So there are all kinds of social negotiation that happens there. People will look at you, and immediately students are identifiable immediately. So they will figure out where you study and all that. And if it is an IIT student, there will be a sweatshirt with a logo and everything. So depending on the goal of the person who is trying to open a conversation with you, they will talk in Hindi, or they will try to figure out the mother tongue, or in English if he wants to appear on par with you, and so on. So these kind of things are very common. So if somebody maybe he is an slightly elderly person who has a son or daughter who is looking for writing competitive exams and getting into IITs and so on. So they will probably start with English, and then if they find out that you share the mother tongue, immediately there will be a change into the mother tongue, into the shared first language, to get more friendly and get more information and so on. So this is what we mean by social negotiation using code switching as a as a mechanism. That is the motivation. Similarly, networking also, I think I did talk about it yesterday. And various groups and their networks will have some identifiable linguistic code. So you change between X and Y depending on which network and which group you want to be seen as. So, for example, this particular study again is from England. The Chinese community does not live in identifiable settlements. What happens very often, migrants live in small ghetto-like settlements. So all migrants, a lot of people from the same community will be staying in the same place. But in this particular area, what happens? The Chinese community do not live in that kind of a settlement. Instead, they are scattered around the city and generally maintain very low public profile. Now, the first generation is who have shifted, who have migrated, and the sponsored migrants are busy in family-owned, typically those eateries, Chinese shops, business, and do not develop social ties at all with non-Chinese groups. Even if they are not so conspicuous as a group, but they will maintain a strong tie with their own group within Chinese groups. So non-Chinese group, they do not really engage in socially. Of course, commercially they do because they run their business. The customers are typically non-Chinese, so that there is a difference that is maintained. However, the British-born generation has a much wider social network. So what happens here is the family is the primary social unit. So they choose between this language and that language. Between members of the first generation and the sponsored generation of migrants, they will be using their own language because that is the identifiable, that is something that they identify with. However, the next generation people, children also, they prefer to use more English, and if they want to be very assertive, even within the family setup or within in group social setup, they will use more English than Chinese in some places. So there are some examples in the book that you can look up from this particular thing, from the social network perspective, where code switching is used. Code switching is used with the motivation of identifying with certain networks, social networks, where what you want to signal and what you do not want to signal, and so on. Right. So this particular example is from England, but there are many more. So language choice will be either more Chinese or more English, depending on who is speaking and what is the topic at hand as well. So these are some of the important social psychological motivation behind code mixing, code switching mostly, because code switching is more voluntary than code mixing. So with this, I would like to conclude this particular segment. If we have some time, if you have any question, you can ask right now, or you prepare your questions, you prepare your whatever doubts and everything you have. Let me know so that I can forward them to the TA and they will take them up in the tutorial classes next week. And the more examples, more case studies and papers and so on will be discussed. Right. But as of now, if you have anything, you can tell me. And Chelsea, you there? The groups have been made, I see. Right? Yes, Chelsea, go ahead. Oh, okay. Okay, let me just check what happened. Where is Chelsea now? I've lost you, Chelsea. I don't see you in the number in the list of participants also. Give me one moment, please. I think something went wrong somewhere.